Tana River is arguably Kenya's largest river, stretching over 1,000 kilometers in length. Its head springs are found on the slopes of Mount Kenya and the Aberdare Mountains. However, this scenic view is not the reason why the Tana Delta has recently been on the limelight. The persistent conflicts pitting Pokomo agriculturalists against the Orma, Wardei and Somali pastoralists has constantly attracted the attention of Kenyans and the international community, with close monitoring through the eyes of journalists. Here, conflicts are more likely to occur during drought more than the wet season. When the hinterland gets dry, Tana River becomes the only permanent source of water within the basin, and the scramble for scarce natural resources results into conflict of interests. August 22, 2012. Kenyans woke up to shocking news that at least 52 people had been killed in ethnic violence between the Orma and Pokomo communities in Riketa area of Tana River district. Of these, 34 people were hacked to death with machetes, while 14 people were burned to death.
Watu wakishtuka, jamaa wakaingia na risasi. Mimi nilikuwa nikizisikia risasi pale mahali niko. Zilikuwa zikilia kama muziki. Risasi nyingi za hali ya juu.
Really today I was shocked of what I saw. In this day and age, to leave people in this state.
53 people were killed, whereby 6 were men, 34 women, and 13 children. Alafu the affected animals were 94. 60 were killed, and 34 were injured. Around 97 houses were burnt down.
Residents of Kilelengwani area then suffered what is believed to be retaliatory attacks between the two communities. Here, 38 people were killed, including 9 police officers. Journalists drawn from various media houses flocked to the area to cover the incident. The tough terrain in the delta, including large swamps and patches of thickets, making it difficult for journalists to maneuver.
Cow was a little bit complicated. You need to use a speedboat because it's been surrounded by the River Tana. And remember, this river is crocodile infested and the hippos. So we ended up staying 2 days without a story. These waters are, I mean, they're up to your neck, and some of us are not swimmers, and you can imagine how we risked, not knowing the kind of challenge we will undergo. The three guys, the driver, my reporter, NTV reporter, they took their time. They could walk very slowly, but me, I was next to him. So when we finished, the place where I thought was I could not go alone, just coming out. This guy tells me, you know what? Yesterday here, 2 gombes were eaten by crocodiles.
Wow.
And you've just finished crossing. You still think you have colleagues behind you. Come on, I crossed maybe on the tail of a crocodile. And then I've hereby crossed again. Why did I take all these risks? Why did I take all these risks?
This is where we approached the Riketa incident from where did our Warinde, but this is the direction. We went up to Riketa B. Then after covering a distance of 2 to 3 kilometers, then we enter where the incident was. That is Riketa village, the main Riketa.
And how were the journalists able to access the areas?
They used the same means as we did. No any other way we could make it.
An even greater challenge facing journalists was how to handle the ethnic tension between the warring communities.
It happened then at one time we wanted to find out actually what is the problem. Is it a pastoralist to cash crop farmers issue, or the issue of historical background of this case? And our interviews with the locals, especially after the Riketa incident, which it raised the eyebrows of almost all journalists and all state organs and other interested organ on human rights. They wanted, because it had a big number, people had approached them to know how it used to happen. And what I gathered personally as a journalist is that there have been those differences between pastoralists and cash crop farmers, and the difference has been so minimal that sometimes it happened that maybe a pastor's community can either kill one person, and then the elders come together, they sort it out, they pay some damages, and then that is all.
The attackers were armed with machetes, bows and arrows, spears and handguns. At one point, journalist David Sharif, who was covering the Riketa incident, found himself on the receiving end.
There's an incident at Riketa when after the bodies have been transferred from the hut, these huts where the families stay to the mosque, where they were transferring the bodies, they're collecting the bodies together so that they can prepare the burial. When now we are doing an interview with one of the locals there, a group of about 30 youths cornered us, and they were yearning for our blood, because they raised the spears, said, no, we need to finish with this guy so that the government now should know we cannot trust anybody. Anybody who is doing this ground, we cannot trust him, because these guys have been on the ground, and we believe as journalists, if they report, then we expect some change. But now the situation is getting worse.
They sometimes mistake you for a rival community, and it becomes very difficult when you're covering.
The intensity of the conflict was put into perspective by the number of casualties, scenes which journalists were not prepared for.
The security issue was the biggest challenge, personally. And you're like, after the coverage, the images that you saw, for how long will you keep on seeing? So by the time you realize that you need to go see a psychiatrist, that would have affected you big time.
As a journalist, I'm also a human being. I'll feel bad because I feel maybe that's like my father, my brother. I'll feel bad. It is so sad to see people like having cuts, they've been cut on the head, they have gunshots. So it is very sad. Yeah.
The horror of seeing injured people, thousands rendered homeless, threats to journalists' own lives motivated the Media Council of Kenya to conduct a training workshop on conflict-sensitive journalism. Journalists were taken through courses on safety, security, trauma and first aid.
You don't want to be misinterpreted to being part of the security forces. So what you want to perhaps do is maybe modify it so it says press. Okay, and a way to do that is to stitch on lightly tack on a press badge on the front and back.
I've learned a lot of things. I've learned that as a journalist I deserve to protect myself. That I've learned that even our media houses are supposed to provide for us safety facilities. They should even give us equipment which we do not have right now.
Journalists are also equipped with skills on how to achieve objective and balanced coverage.
From which you report, you need to understand those communities inside out. Who is an enemy to who? Why? Where do the grudges come from? What could have happened in the past? What are the bones of contention? Who has the resources, to fund the conflict? Because quite often, unless you have people who can mobilize others, who are the likely people to be used as, the armies for that community? And you need to understand the conflict.
There are some things that we were taking for granted, but now I think they are not. Now we are more equipped. We are able now to cover those conflicts and to come out safely. That is what I can say that it has really benefited us.
The topic of conflict-sensitive reporting, it has made me learn a lot. It has made me to assess a situation, especially conflicts. Before I report, at least I get various information from both sides, so that I actually can balance and bring a story that is going to build, than showing the situation the way it is and not looking for a solution.
Kenya's constitution guarantees freedom of expression as a right for all. Journalists were trained on how to disseminate information objectively and professionally, guided by the Code of Ethics.
We came up with guidelines, professional guidelines that are to be followed by everybody in covering this election, for the simple reason of making sure that this time, at least, elections will be covered professionally.
The code allows you, tell your editor, that's a story that I have some personal interest, or because I come from that village, I can't do it. And the code supports conflict of interest. Yes. And it's allowed in the code. So don't die to do the story simply because you want to do what the editor told you yet. Even the code, and that is going to happen as we approach elections, yes. Remember.
The training is helping a lot. And for now, I know how to go through such sensitive reporting, especially when there are clashes, and how I can go back and give out information that will not cause any tension. And then after that, I also learned some few tips that can help me during field work. Yeah.
The media owners, they should run away from the commercial thing. Yeah? I know commercial is there, making money will be there. And if you stick to the rule of ethics, the making of money will still be there. It won't change. But I think the whole system is just not good. We need some new blood into it. Yeah.
These trainings were extended to editors in form of training of trainers workshops. The trained editors will then form a pool of trainers and train journalists drawn from print and electronic media across the country. There were lessons on how a person can administer first aid in case of injury. With all said and done, journalists agreed that it is upon them to ensure that they are safe and secure while on assignment. They emphasized that no story is worth their lives and that gathering, packaging, and dissemination of information requires a delicate sense of safety first.